What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Two Commoners podcast. We have the unofficial third commoner back with us.
That's right.
It's the man, the myth, the legend.
Take her away, John.
Yeah.
It's good to be here, guys. Third appearance, I believe.
Yeah.
The number one fan of the podcast. I'm back, and just as mediocre as ever.
Hey! Don't downplay yourself, bro.
It's alright.
You're integral part here. You're an integral
Hey,
part.
appreciate it. I enjoy the pod, and I'm glad that I can make some appearance sometimes. So
Yeah.
But I think it's good. I think we have a good mix that we can sort things out.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, let's get after it, huh?
Yeah, episode 20. Back, better than ever.
Yeah, this is a big episode, guys.
Yep.
I'm actually pretty. Let's get emotional for a second, Hunter, and just say, like, do you think we'd make 20 episodes?
No, I didn't. I was actually shocked.
Yeah,
We made it this far.
Then, yeah.
You know what, though? We got a loyal fan base, and couldn't
Yeah,
do it without the...
a loyal fan base of
dozen
like
people
6,
that-
but I'm like glad it's happening. And we've also had even though there was like 5 weeks where we didn't have any guests, and that was partially because we recorded like 4
Yeah.
all in one day. But we had a steady stream of guests for a while. Now we're getting another steady stream of guests flowing in. So
Yep.
I mean, that's pretty good. We got one lined up for next week. So
Yeah, it's exciting time, too, because, like, we got almost 100 days till the election.
I know, dude.
Things are only going to start heating up. Oh, can't wait to see what scandal drops soon.
If there's a Trump Biden debate, which obviously we don't know if that's gonna happen yet, but if there is, how do you feel about a live reaction to it?
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. You're invited too, Joe.
Yeah,
Yeah. As a fan, I'd love to see it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Be a
put
good
that out there.
good little entertainment episode. Oh man. So what do you want us to start with here? We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. We had a little bit more. We always have nice in-depth discussions before we start these podcasts to get brain juices flowing, but we had a little bit more of an intense one
Yeah.
before this podcast. So I mean, I'm pretty riled up, but like before we get right into the mosh pit, why don't we? It's been a while since we've had John on. I just want to hear his opinion of everything that's been going on because the world has been cranked up to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I think we've never seen a year like this, for sure. I guess I'll start with the riots. As far as that was more recent news that I hadn't been on here within a while. But when people get mad, when they've been shit on for hundreds of years, this is what's gonna happen. And I don't blame the riots at all. I blame the anarchists that are getting in on the action, trying to see what they can get from it. But overall, I think there's a lot of the peacefulness is getting overlooked. I would say a little bit. I mean, that's just the way news is run. It's you look for the biggest, the most conflict and
Yeah.
things like that. But when people say, like, you say Black Lives Matter, but you look at the black on black crime rates and they're like, why don't those Black Lives Matter? But to me, that's just like the next thing. We got to start small somewhere because that's a lot of people don't have hope. If you're talking about the inner cities, people, they live in a lot worse conditions than I do. The schools are bad. I think a lot of people don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, or that there is hope that they can move out. And I think a lot of that leads to crime. A lot of them are drug infested. So the way that we can help to solve those problems, in my opinion, is that it's mostly funding. I'm big on funding schools. I think that's the biggest way. You gotta fund it. You need teachers that want to work there. Money it's a very nice motivator. So we need better teachers that can actually get to these kids instead of, I think there's these general, like,
Yeah.
just there's some teachers just don't inspire you at all, and that's That's not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Gotta pay him too. Like you said, money's a good motivator.
Yeah.
Money is a good motivator.
And what, if we're gonna be honest here, if we were all looking for a job in the education sector, would you rather go to an inner city or a suburb of an inner city?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, I'd want to teach at New Richmond, instead of.
In all honesty, even if things were all equal, I'd probably still want to teach in a suburb, though.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I wonder if it's even possible to get good teachers to want to teach in the city, even if funding was equally distributed. You get what I mean?
Well, I don't think it has to be equally distributed. I think we
But-
need
but
more
you know what I mean.
more funding. Yeah, more funding on the inner cities to give that extra incentive to.
At least just changing how it is funded instead of the area's income tax.
Yeah.
I'm not an economist. I don't know.
I don't know,
A whole lot about the inner
I'm
workings.
pretty sure that's not the only way schools are funded, but it definitely accounts for some of their income. Obviously, there is federal funds, but like the community around them does provide a large chunk of the funds.
Mhm.
So it's I guess you could say like a hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
And then of course there's public grants. I mean, part of the reason New Richmond High School does. Part of the reason New Richmond High School has programs that are impressive, specifically in like the automotive and like the engineering-esque programs, that kind of seem like very impressive for our high schools because of grants we get from companies like Bosch and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, and honestly, for a high school to really set themselves apart, they really do need private grants to do that. That's just how it works right now. And I honestly don't think it's necessarily a bad system, but essentially what this means is you need there to be at least one private company in an area that not only cares enough about investing into the education of the community, but also thinks that it would be a good investment. Because I really do believe that more companies would do that in areas that need it if they thought the investment would be worthwhile. Because part of the reason you see this being a fairly common thing in areas like where we live is because it does work and it is actually profitable for that company to do that. For one, that grant gives them tax write-offs.
Yep.
For two, they're investing into the community around them in a way that gives people an interest that later gives them workers that would be good at what they need to like make more money. So I think that I don't think it's like some unrealistic thing to expect companies to do that, because I think they're highly incentivized to do that.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to being in the city, I think they're worried that if they do that, the funds won't be used in a way that will basically give them back the investment they put into it. Because let's say the school has bad management. Even though the investment is good, assuming they have good management, if the management's bad, then it won't be realized and optimized, and you have plenty of reasons to be deterred from that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some cities where there still is the case where companies will donate to it, thinking that, like wanting the tax write-off and wanting the good publicity, thinking that'll help, and then it like doesn't really have the impact on test scores and expanding school programs that they think it will, and then they end up not doing it again. So I do think a two-pronged approach of like fixing it infrastructurally and also fixing the culture is like needed. And there's like this whole debate on what fixing the culture really means, or if it's even possible. And some people think that the culture, in order to fix it, it will go hand in hand with fixing the infrastructure, because a better infrastructure will make a better culture. And there's definitely some truth in that. But at the same time, I think that there's also I think some of the messages that like are being pushed by like BLM are kind of counterintuitive with the infrastructure change they want in creating the culture. Like, have you guys been seeing the stuff about BLM kind of being like anti-traditional family structure?
No.
So like if you go to BLM's website, a lot of the like policies they push, like after you get past the main one of what they actually want to do with policy, which is pretty agreeable in my mind. I'm not necessarily on board with defunding the police in every aspect, but I understand what they want. They want to change police reform laws, and I do think that if we change policing in the way that I want it, which is end the war on drugs, I think it would inevitably lead to police departments needing less funding in order to keep up with their duties, because I think the only reason they need such large funding is to keep up with the impossible task of keeping drugs off the streets.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, but if you keep looking, they have like on their website they have other like cultural agendas that are almost unrelated to policing, and I don't know, it just seems pretty like anti-traditional like family values and stuff, and that's not something I'm gonna like die on a hill to protect.
What do you mean by?
Well, like that's what I mean. Like it seems pretty weird to say like, because there's no policy that like goes against that, but they still feel the need to talk about how they don't like tradition. Like they call out the nuclear family and they talk about how they're against like reinforcing the nuclear family and stuff. And some of the leaders of it like specifically go out of their way to talk about that. It's like unrelated to like what they want, but they still feel the need to talk about it. And I almost like wonder why they bring it up the same way you are. It's like, what do you mean? Like, why is this important? And then they talk about how they want like a support structure, and it sounds pretty good on paper. They basically are talking. Basically, what they want is like similar to an anarchist like support structure within the culture, where it's a culture where it's like a neighborhood support system where various people in the neighborhood will help each other out, and you don't have to depend on just family. But I think like that sort of support system is built off of like having a family structure, and it doesn't even need to be the Republicans' idea of like a nuclear family where it's like a man and a woman, and then their like son who's on the football team, and their daughter who's like it can be like an empowered woman who wants to go into the workforce and become a lawyer, a guy who like maybe goes into fashion, maybe it's a same-sex couple, maybe it's a couple that doesn't have kids. But I still think that like I still think it's important to encourage family structures, especially if you're having kids. Like I think that like as we've talked about in the podcast before, specifically getting married or having something that connects two people, regardless of like what the nature of whether they're a same-sex couple or a heterosexual couple, like that doesn't matter to me. All that matters to me is that it's two parents who have incentive to stay together, who are like raising kids, because I really do think that one of the main problems with the culture in the black community is the fact that the parents don't stay together and the kids don't have the right type of parental figures. And I think that's why you see things like the video of the black woman defacing that mural, of the Black Lives Matter mural. She's putting black paint on it and claiming that Black Lives Matter doesn't care about black lives, because I think she and many other like protesters who live in the black communities who aren't down with like necessarily direction of Black Lives Matter think that it is a cultural issue and they need to solve that, other than just like trying to solve the problems with policing, which should still be solved. But it just seems like, I don't know, and I'm going to end this rant soon, but I just would like to point out that apparently a lot of the donation money that Black Lives Matter has raised has been going directly to like re-elect Democrat funds and stuff like that. Yeah, and it's been like a scandal that's coming out a little bit lately, because Black Lives Matter gets the money and then they give the money to Democrats, and some people don't like that.
Yeah, yeah, but you could also say how I would see that is like most of those views align in terms of getting structural change that they want. A lot of it, I would say the Democrats have a lot more of that in mind than the Republicans. So I think it's an efficient way to try and achieve that change if you're going to put those funds right to supporting people that are going to change those policies. But at the same time, if they're They're I honestly don't have a problem with it. I'm gonna say I
That's
don't have
fair.
a huge problem with it.
That's fair. I mean, I guess I don't have a huge problem with it. I guess what just kind of like screams scam to me is the fact that Democrats control most of these areas that they're trying to raise money to fix.
Yeah.
So it's like they're like, we have to fight the machine, but in most of the areas where this aggressive policing is an issue and being publicized in inner cities, it's almost entirely already controlled by Democrats, and they almost already have the ability to make the changes right now. They don't need to raise money to get people in the office to make the changes when the politicians who are getting the money from these fundraising are already holding the power. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is funny. That doesn't seem to add up really to me, and it's like Democrats really have never come through in the ways that they should have been.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, obviously, like, one unarmed person getting killed by the police is too many on its own. But I just can't help but notice that it always becomes a bigger deal when it gets closer to election. And you might just say, maybe it's the people deciding that it's more real. But I also think it has to do with the way the media elevates it. Because, like I said, it is pretty obvious that it is profitable for their campaigns to amplify these things around these times. Because they can do a similar thing where they use Black Lives Matter to get more campaign funds, and it's better for them. And I don't know, it just screams disingenuous to me.
They weren't asking it to be close to an election, though.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is you can, like, they could have done this to any of them. Like, first of all, like, the Breonna Taylor thing happened, like, months before the George Floyd thing, and it became a thing after the George Floyd thing. That could have been the straw that broke the camel's back. And I obviously, I'm glad that attention is being brought to police doing things wrong. I would never ask for those things to be covered up. I think they need to be known. But I just think it says a lot of, like, when they're amplifying these things. Because let's be real, they could have done it before. They could have done it during Obama's presidency, before his election. And they did technically do it during Obama's presidency with the Ferguson stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't happen close to an election with him. It happened early into his presidency. It just seems like it's very strategic on... Because there's no shortage of... Like, there's 19, like, unarmed minorities that get shot by police per year on average. And I'm assuming those are fairly distributed across the year. And I don't know, just to me it seems like, because I'm sure there are people protesting about each and every single one of those. Like, I think the actual grassroots protest level, like, that shit isn't nefarious because they don't have the capability.
Mm-hmm.
But when it becomes a nationwide thing is when the media consciously decides to elevate it. And I think they do calculate which ones that they decide to elevate.
Yeah. Excuse me.
And I mean, and I understand that to somebody whose like agenda is furthered by the media elevating specific ones, it might not seem like an issue because you could just make the argument with maybe it seems a little snaky, but they're manipulating it in a positive way in order to get the outcome that's good enough for the most people. And that could be the case, and it probably is the case amongst a lot of people who are involved in this like machine doing that. But I also especially think like the higher ups in this machine are using it more to maintain power more than anything else.
Yeah. I think with George Floyd's death, the way that we all learned about it was by seeing the video. Now we have, these great iPhone cameras, and you can just it was such a I think a emotion. Such an emotional really gets a lot of emotional reaction from people that they don't have that video for Breonna Taylor's death, and it was like especially the knee on the neck with the hand in the pocket. I think that's what fired a lot of people up, but.
Well, it definitely was one of the most heinous acts of an unarmed black man getting killed, because a lot of the other ones, like I mentioned the Ferguson riots earlier, and that was with Michael Brown, and there's a lot of discrepancy with that one, and I honestly lean towards that one. It probably falls more into the justified column. It's pretty impossible to justify George Floyd's death, and I don't see anybody really doing that at all.
Right.
Which is a good thing that nobody's doing that, because it'd be pretty gross if somebody did.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'll definitely admit that the heinousness of it probably has to do with why it was elevated.
Yeah,
But-
yeah, that would be most of my point. There was
Yeah.
that was the.
Yeah.
It was like the worst thing I've ever seen, dude. I've never
It's
seen
pretty
something
bad.
like
It's pretty bad, and I mean, the cops' reaction to it was pretty bad too.
It's not like Breonna Taylor's death didn't draw attention right away.
I feel like it. I feel like
it
I
brought
only heard
legislation
about
back early.
it after the George Floyd thing.
Yeah, it brought the results came after, which is unfortunate, but it brought legislation back early, and also created a unanimous vote for banning no-knock warrants. That
Yeah.
was the results
That's
were
pretty
after.
good.
Legislation saw that they needed to act right away. I don't know. What are you thinking about now?
I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking of. I guess the thing about Black Lives Matter and why I hesitate to say I support the organization is because the movement on its face I support because the phrase Black Lives Matter, that's pretty agreeable. I think that Black lives do matter, and I understand why people get offended when people respond to Black Lives Matter by saying all lives matter, because I get it. It's diluting an issue by saying, because obviously all lives matter too, but the issue isn't that all lives are being disproportionately oppressed right now. The issue is that people think that Black lives are being treated unfairly and cared about less in relation to the rest of lives.
I heard sorry, I just want to
Yeah,
give
you
this.
can butt in.
I heard this very good analogy about Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, comparing it to like being a mom. You have 4 kids, whatever. One of them gets a cut really badly and is bleeding. You're not gonna put a Band-Aid on every single kid to draw attention and get sort of that empathy from those kids, but you're gonna put most of the attention towards that one kid that is.
I suppose. I mean, I don't know how much I want to get into semantics of it, but I guess just the overly analytical and accurate part of me wants to be like, well, a Band-Aid's action in a phrase like Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter is a saying. So the Band-Aid in this analogy would line up less with chanting a slogan and more with legislation.
Okay.
Do you go to? Do you kind of
No,
go?
not
what I'm
really.
saying? I think it would almost. Okay, so it would almost be like. I think a better analogy would be like, instead of asking the kid it's okay, if you ask all your kids if you're okay, if they're okay, you know what I mean?
But do you have to ask if all your kids are okay, especially during?
Yeah,
this
you
time?
don't. I'm trying to improve your analogy. Is what I'm trying to do, Hunter.
Well,
I-
I was just referring as the Band-Aid as the support that the Black Lives Matter movement is garnering.
Yeah, I got you.
It's not supposed to be
analogy.
difficult.
I'm just being a little bit of a prick. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's
it's
okay.
okay.
that. That analogy is like a 6 out of 10. I think it's solid. But
I mean, you make your point, and so yeah, I definitely get why. I definitely get why it's rude to say like all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm not one of those people who like do that when I hear that. But to get back to why I hesitate to support the Black Lives Matter movement directly is because at the end of the day, the movement is not the organization is not just the slogan. They're an organization that's getting a ton of money and putting that money with particular motives and has leadership. Like
What's wrong with that?
well, nothing's wrong with that.
I get the point where you're
nothing's
saying.
wrong with that on its face. It's just I have to view it less as like I'm not gonna judge something by his name. It would be like I have to put it under more scrutiny than whether or not what the name says. You get what I mean? Like I can't judge it entirely on the name. If I decide not to support it, it doesn't mean I don't support what their name means. And if I do support it, I'm supporting more than what just the name says. You get what I mean?
Mhm.
So it automatically has to elicit more caution from people upon knowing that it is an organization with multiple political agendas. If that makes any sense to you guys.
I
Yeah,
suppose.
it reminds me of when it was when those $1,200 things were coming in the mail.
Yeah.
And then or it was like the relief bill, and then the Democrats were trying to push all this other stuff in there.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? No, like, cut the shit. Like,
And what's really weird is a lot of the money was going that they wanted to put in there was like weird infusions to like monuments and statues and stuff like that, and museums and all this weird stuff that's almost like more symbolic. And then what's weird is then we have like a month later. Now, like, the liberals are, like, super anti, like, all the statues because of how their base is. And now the Republicans are trying to do all this stuff to protect the statues. And it, like, literally just flips on a dime, just like that. Because at the end of the day, like, winning the symbolic culture war, for some reason, matters more to these politicians than actually getting things done. Because they do want to win the culture war. And because the culture war comes with votes.
Yeah.
And symbols and pointless crap is an easier way to do it than actually fixing things.
yeah,
It's true.
And that's like another reason I hesitate, because since Black Lives Matter has been elevated so much, that automatically means that they're more likely to play that game than play the real game. Like, just because they're like bigger now, that automatically means that they're more likely to play the game of like trying to do what's easy for power and funds versus doing what their initial mission was. I get really wary of, like, okay, this is a little edgy, but I think it's one of the most consistent things in my ideology. Groups of people are the most evil thing on the planet. I honestly do think groupthink, collectivization is the root of all evil. Because even if I do have bad intentions by myself, it's pretty hard to do anything if I'm just one guy. You know what I mean?
right.
And I could still do a pretty terrible thing if I wanted, but it doesn't. And sometimes you do see people like that, like things like Christchurch and things like that, where somebody decides to basically do an act of terrorism or shoot a place up. But that's the most damage one person can do on their own. Having everlasting, like, I guess more sneaky, manipulative damage that actually affects people's lives for, like, the next, like, couple decades due to passing legislation and stuff, that can only happen in groups of people. And I also think individual good intentions can get distorted like a game of telephone when it's collective. And I also think corrective ideas that would, let's say somebody in the group makes a bad idea or the group's going a bad direction, and somebody would be like, guys, I don't think this is what we're about. The bigger the group is, the easier that person immediately gets like cut from the group and can have no impact on actually doing it.
Yeah, I feel like you have to have really, really strong leadership that is really strong on their integrity about what they want to do, and then if it, like, basically the idea would be to have like Jesus Christ, bro, for like to lead organizations, but that's not happening.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I totally agree.
And even individuals that people think have done bad things on their own, Hitler, Stalin, etc., that's only accomplished because they had a group that was essentially like, it's kind of nerdy, but it's like their political mech suit that they climb inside of and operate to basically become an extension of themselves.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you see a lot of fascist dictatorships. Every like soldier is supposed to almost be like a mirror image, like a unit of like the fascist dictator themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I really do not like collectivism. I really don't, and I think that it.
I think you're overshadowing all the good things it does too, though.
Collectivism.
Yeah, and like group ideas, big large groups.
Well, I think notice that the best group systems we have is where we compartmentalize the group into smaller groups, like how our government is set up. You have 3 branches of government, each with a political faction in both that is trying to go against the other person who's in the same group as them. And within that, you might have sub-factions within that political group, such as the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And if any of those groups got complete control of like all the things, I have no doubt that no matter who it would be, the country would go to crap. because we would turn into like China. Because it doesn't matter what values they ran on, the value would no longer matter because
Yeah.
the value is a selling point.
Right.
And once America buys it,
We got them.
yeah, pretty much.
Ladies
like,
and gentlemen, we
mission
got 'em.
accomplished, boys. Like, I literally do think that's like when the masks off.
Yeah, right.
Because power does corrupt, and nobody's above being corrupt. If I was like a head of like a political party, and I would do my best to like stay true to the movement, but let's just say everything went right for me all of a sudden, and we just won. And even at that moment, I still might go for like be true to the movement. But let's say 15 years pass, and I'm still in complete control, and I'm surrounded by yes men that think every idea I make is good. Oh boy, I might start acting like Trump, or like Putin or Z.
Yeah, it'd be hard to check yourself because I mean, a lot of your decisions might just be like, this would be good for me.
Yeah,
This would be fun.
yeah.
This would
Like
be nice.
I'm not above corruption, and neither are you guys, and
Yeah,
neither
no.
is anybody
Yeah.
else. Like, and that corruption I think is literally impossible on your own without an enabling group.
Yeah.
So I agree. Good things can happen in groups, but only when there's other groups within the group. Like, the group has to be divided into subgroups. If it's like one big macro group, i.e. Russia, China, etc., it goes south. And even with the amount of groups we have in America, which is essentially two big groups, even though there is infighting within the groups, even that is not compartmentalized enough for me. Even that.
Okay.
I don't know. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
You can hop into the next topic if you'd like.
No.
I've been talking a lot this podcast.
That's all right. I've lost my train of thought. Let's continue off of. Let's just keep going down the line. What you've missed. I want to hear
Okay.
your takes. So we've covered George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. That's not going away anytime soon.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it'll be around until the election. Well, past the election.
We're gonna see it become a political party if the Democrat Party goes south.
No, it's
I have
true.
no doubt.
Yeah.
Then we had the whole situation with Kanye running. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Kanye's my boy. First of all, that's my boy. I would have 100% voted for Kanye West,
Wow, that's weird.
but
So
I've come.
I'm just wondering what the
Like, because you like his
rationalization-
music?
No. One, because I think the Democratic Party they're lost in the sauce, dude.
Does he share the same views you do?
Does the party?
No, does
Does
Kanye?
Almost a little bit. You know, you guys would be surprised on what my abortion views are. Again, here's the big galaxy brain white male coming in with his abortion thoughts.
Yep.
Everyone loves to hear those.
Yep.
But
Hey, at least he's self-aware.
yeah. You know, I'm pro-choice, but I think abortions are really bad.
That's essentially where I'm at.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
I think a lot of people could agree with you.
Yeah, I suppose.
No
I
one
mean,
wants.
no one's happy.
wants to get an abortion.
Man, let's get an abortion day. That's gonna be sick. Yeah. So
But the choice is there. Is the more
Sure.
important thing.
So you know what? I think Kanye. Here's something.
He is very not
Yeah,
pro-choice.
Imagine Kanye like repeals like, was it? It's not Roe v. Wade, is it? It's
Roe v. Wade's a thing with
That's-
abortion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Could you imagine, bro?
No.
He also wanted to put God back in the schools. What do you think about that?
Separate church, state,
My-
and education.
All right. My whole thing on voting for Kanye is basically I'm ready to do a protest vote because I don't want to vote for Joe Biden. But
So it's a symbolic vote. Like, you don't want him to win. You just would like Kanye to do well. Is that basically it? Like, you'd like Kanye to lose, but you'd like him to lose. Like, you'd like him to be close enough to like winning.
Who do you want to win? Like,
I mean, who do I want to win? Not Joe Biden, dude, but not Donald Trump.
Oh, it
Like-
seems like our hands are tied. I mean,
I know,
freaking,
right?
what's his name? What was the guy's name? Justin Amash also backed out like a little bitch the same way Kanye did. Like,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
for fucking Jesse Ventura needs to jump in the race right now, bro.
I-
I think he would do well, dude. I think he would do way better than Justin Amash did. I think he'd do even better than Kanye. I shit you not. There's people on the internet begging Jesse Ventura to run. Nobody was begging Kanye to run. People would just basically voted them for the same reason John did, if that was like because they thought that he would do well if he did run, but nobody was begging him to run. Jesse Ventura, there's literally a fairly large community of people that like are begging him to run. Like, it's pretty nuts.
Well, it's a little too late now.
Yeah, it is too late. He should have done it. I think it would have been his best. I don't think he wants to be president. Is the problem. But, and I'm not even saying I would have voted for him. I don't know what I'm doing for the record. Don't even ask. I'm in a pretty malleable spot with my views right now. Holy shit.
Yeah,
I think I'm nutty.
Yeah, do you think there's ever been a more important pick for vice president
Oh
for
no,
Joe Biden? I mean,
absolutely.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think you got that pretty.
I was talking to one of my, I would call him near alt-right Republican friend, and he's thinking it's gonna be Michelle Obama.
Yeah, see that? Oh my god, I hate when. Okay, like.
Nah, I bet it's. I've changed my views.
I don't know what is with fucking Republicans and people who are so like. I guess you could say near alt-right would be a good word for it. Like, I know that word has stigma, but like that sort of crowd, I don't understand what is up with them and like allowing they have like the exact opposite of Trump derangement syndrome. They have like that Obama derangement syndrome where they just think the Obamas are gonna like pop out of the cake last minute and like hijack the Democratic Party. Like, I don't know why they think that happens. That's not Obama's style.
Yeah.
Like, use your brain. Even if you believe that he's like a puppet master behind the scenes, which is plausible, definitely, and I would say it is true to a degree. He's not the only puppet master back there. I doubt he's the head of it, but he is probably like one of the many heads on the Hydra, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna take center stage. I don't think he wants it.
Mm-mm.
It's a bad look.
Yeah.
Obama's not that stupid. Michelle's not that stupid.
Yeah.
What about Oprah? Like, a lot of people think that.
Really? I hadn't.
Yeah,
heard
I don't
I've
think that's
never heard
I don't
Oprah.
think that's a serious thing
It's
that
not
would
being
ever
that,
happen.
no.
But could you imagine, like, Oprah could could run for president the same way Trump could?
Yeah.
And like probably win in like 2024 after Trump's done. Like, it'd be like the counter Trump. I wouldn't want that, obviously, but
Yeah.
I just don't want outsiders like that running for president. No
Yeah, but-
policy experience. No,
yeah,
especially after
give me
this.
my neo-lib centrists. I need them back.
No, not that. Not that.
Really, that's what Joe Biden is.
Well, yes, I know that's it, but
So what's your dream candidate? Somebody who's like a neo-lib centrist but a little bit more progressive, like Pete.
yeah, that was my number one choice.
So you want the neo-lib progressive hybrid? I see.
Yeah.
It's not terrible. Yeah, I could
what's wrong
I mean,
definitely.
it's
with
not
that?
a
Yeah.
hey, I mean, honestly, it isn't a terrible idea. I mean, I think you guys might have been. So I'm torn on whether making Pete the guy would have been a good idea or not. Because let's be honest, he wasn't very experienced. He was a mayor running for president. That's pretty nuts. The fact that, but he did pretty well, and he was, where credit's due, and he's an extremely talented politician.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. He's extremely talented. I don't think he's bad at the game at all. I think he made some bad moves, but I mean, hey, I think he did pretty well, depending on, or given how inexperienced he is.
Yeah.
But I still think he would have lost. But do you think he'd do better than Biden? It's hard to say.
Yeah. You know.
What do you
I
guys
think.
think?
I think. Yes. I think yes. I think.
Thinking he doesn't have to worry about being a bad speaker because I do think he's a very good speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the Democratic Party's timeline just isn't matching up well. There's a lot of these young people are excited about,
And they don't.
and they
Yeah.
don't have enough experience. Is probably one of the biggest knocks for them. And in an election that's, to me, extremely important.
That's why I'm excited for 2024.
Yeah.
Just
so,
move on.
Yeah, what do we do? Just let Trump win this one and then
Nope.
pump out Yang and
No.
Pete?
Dude, like real talk. I would vote for Yang if he.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care who he's running against. It's really hard for me to imagine that I would vote for Yang's candidate over Yang. It is really hard for me to imagine that I wouldn't vote for Yang if he ran.
I love
Make-
it. He'll
make
be
him the
back.
VP.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, freaking Yang Gabbard. Come on, it needs to happen.
Yeah, I hope he's back in 2024. That's what
God.
he's just doing. He's building up his reputation a little bit.
I
trying to
think
get
he
some.
did. I think he did pretty well for. And by the way, you say you don't want an outsider yet. You like Yang.
Okay, that yeah,
Get
it's
dunked
true.
on.
It's true. It's true.
See, we need an out. But this is what I was actually trying to tell you a few podcasts ago. We need an outsider, but we need a Yang, a Ross Perot.
Yep.
We need that kind of outsider. We don't need.
He
the
comes
Donald-
in with a platform
Yeah.
that is plausible.
We don't need a Donald Trump, Oprah, Kanye
Yeah.
outsider.
Not from the entertainment side.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a businessman and an intellectual.
Yeah. Well, see, Trump had like almost like camouflage on the fact that he was from the entertainment sector because like he's an entertainer first and foremost, I believe. But like he kept saying, "I'm a businessman," but we all know that that's like that plays second fiddle to like what he actually is.
Yeah.
It's not the case with Yang. Yang is although Yang was trying to be a little bit of a pop culture entertaining candidate. I mean, he was like freaking like doing like have you seen those videos of him like freaking taking cream pies to the face and shit? Or
No.
like crowd surfing, or he went on H3H3.
No, I haven't seen that stuff. That's
Yeah.
funny though. I mean, that's how you get the kids, dude.
Yeah.
The what was it? I forgot who was. It was the
Well, I like the one where he's like passing through a town late at night on the campaign trail, and he stopped at like this dance studio and just started dancing with the people there.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
yeah. It's like
Shows you're human,
yeah,
not just some robot.
the Gary
puppet.
Johnson method.
Yeah.
They talk about when he like fell over like that.
Yeah.
that was the funniest.
That was edgy, but I respect him so much for that.
Yeah, I thought that was.
Fuck,
hilarious.
I'd vote for Gary Johnson honestly over any of these clowns because that are running right now. And the reason I say that is because what was the biggest worry with freaking Gary Johnson? Incompetence and the fact that he was a little bit of a dolt. Do you think that really matters right now?
No.
Like that's what I'm saying. For some reason that shit mattered in 2016, which I don't even know why. Like
Life changes fast, man.
yeah. Like I remember back when people were shitting on him for not knowing what Aleppo is.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Which is it's a city in Syria that's actually very important to the Syrian war, and that was like a big deal back then for some reason. Nobody even can remember why because who the fuck cares about Syria anymore? It's so far removed from like. Remember when foreign policy in the Middle East was actually a big point
Yeah.
in 2016 election? Does anybody care about that right now?
No, not one bit.
Like,
It's weird how. I'd say that's kind of how Trump won. Bashing foreign policy.
well, I mean, to be honest, it was good attacks. I mean, I do think that if Hillary Clinton would have became president, I don't think she would have handled foreign policy very well. Yeah, that's up for debate. But it is obviously a hypothetical. But let's be real. Trump's main failings have nothing to do with foreign policy. Trump's main failings
North
are
Korea?
Okay, I don't think anybody could have handled them well. And I think he did a fairly decent job for a little bit. And North Korea lying to Trump and backing out of plans, they would have done that to anybody. I mean, you could say that he was a little bit of an idiot for trusting them, but I also don't even know if he actually trusted them. Because what do you do in that situation? Say, I don't trust you, Kim.
Yeah.
And we didn't like give anything up. It's not like we gave him a nuke and said, I trust you not to set this off. Like we just said, don't make nukes, and they didn't for a bit, and then they started making nukes again. Like we lost nothing. Nothing was lost.
I think he's handling. I think you've said this. Do you think he's handling China well? Farmers are hurting.
I think he was for a while. He's upping tensions with China, so he's trying to. He knows that his approval rating and part of the reason people want to vote for him is because people think that he knows how to handle China, and I kind of think he does, but I think he's ramping up tensions over Hong Kong right now, which isn't what needs to be done, and a lot of people regard it as a pretty crazy move, and I would agree. We can't handle World War III right now.
What about Russia?
That's a tough one. I mean, I don't think being Putin's buddy is even like the worst thing for America. Like, people try to seem to attack it on like a moral level, but I also think that like you can make the argument that being buddies with Putin is just like a trick that Trump is like pulling.
Yeah, keep your enemies close.
Pretty much. But that being said, Russia has been kind of clowning us recently with those the hit lists that came out on American troops, and
He hasn't said any. Well, he just denied it. He hasn't he hasn't condemned them or anything. That's not very good in my eyes.
yeah, but I also don't know what condemning it would necessarily do because no doubt the CIA is
Just hold them accountable. Make them.
Yeah, but holding them accountable doesn't do anything. Like I have no doubt in my mind that the CIA is on this shit right now, trying to like take care of it. Like assuming that they're actually like trying to take care of the problem, I don't care how he reacts to this publicly because no matter what he says to Russia, like Russia's not going to change what they're doing. It's the same thing with North Korea.
Put more sanctions on them.
I'm
That's
pretty,
what we
sure
did.
I'm pretty sure he has been putting more sanctions on.
Not
Russia.
recently. He did it in the beginning.
I mean, do we even have the ability to do it right now? Because we're fucking like running low on shit. Like, I would even argue that we need to slow down the trade war with China right now. But he's trying to like, you can't put sanctions on all our enemies and all the sketchy world leaders all at once. It's overextending him. I think he's just making a judgment call that China's a bigger threat. I'd agree. I understand the argument for why Russia would be a bigger threat, especially with all the news that's coming out. So I mean, we can have a conversation about that. But
Yeah, man.
I think it's just a judgment call. He made the judgment call. I get why you disagree.
It'll be interesting to see what Russia does the next few years because Putin's going to be in power for the rest of his life.
Well, so is President Xi.
Yep, true. But bigger player in the Middle East.
What about Donald Trump? Is he going to be in power for the rest of his life?
He, I'm gonna
I can't wait to see the exit. Whenever it happens, either way, he's gonna be like, "This is bullshit."
Do
Like,
you think he's going to go out like Nixon?
oh yeah. Your president's not a crook.
Yeah. I need to find that video. Because Chris Wallace asked him about it. Would you accept the results? So you guys keep talking. I'm going to find it. And
Yeah.
then we can.
I'm not going to lie. It does scare me a little bit. I don't want to immediately go all nuts and be like, I don't think Trump's going to leave office because I'd like to believe he would if he lost because I think even if he like said some bullshit like this was rigged, I think at the end of the day he would begrudgingly leave. Like what's he gonna do?
Yeah.
Just like barricade himself in the White House?
Yeah, it's pretty true. Like, what can he do? I don't know, but yeah, I think he would, try and fight it as much as he could, and I don't know how serious it would be, but
I think the only way it would be serious is if Mitch McConnell took a side. Then that'd be
Oh.
pretty scary, but I don't think Mitch is like super loyal to Trump.
yeah, I don't,
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Because I think he's just using him, but which
Who's
What-
using who, though? Mitch using Trump? Or Trump using Mitch?
a little bit of both, but probably more misusing Trump. Who's the career politician here?
Alright, I got it.
Talking about November. Are you a good loser?
I'm not a good loser. I don't like to
That's a
lose.
weird question,
I
yeah.
I'm the best loser.
don't like to
Very
lose.
gracious.
You don't know until you see. It depends. I think mail-in voting is going to rig the election. I really do.
Are you suggesting that you might not accept the results of the election?
I have to see. Look, Hillary Clinton asked me the same thing.
No, I asked you the same
No,
thing in the
but-
debate. There is a tradition in this country, in fact, one of the prides of this country is the peaceful transition of power, and that no matter how hard fought a campaign is, that at the end of the campaign, that the loser concedes to the winner. Not saying that you're necessarily going to be the loser or the winner, but that the loser concedes to the winner, and that the country comes together in part for the good of the country. Are you saying you're not prepared now to
What
commit
I'm
to that
saying
principle?
is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris,
And you know what? She's the one that never accepted
I
it.
agree.
She never accepted her loss, and she looks like a
can you give
fool.
a direct answer? You will accept the
I
election?
have to see. Look, I have to see.
I'm
Now,
not
look, I can
surprised.
just say
It's the
yes,
same
I'm
answer
gonna
you
say
got
no,
last
and I
time.
Yep.
And I mean,
Does it worry you?
I mean, it would make it a lot easier for him if he just said yes, and then if he still wanted to fight it. he
Yeah,
could
why
just-
did he, yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Like, if you're playing a political game here, just say yes.
well, once again, this is the thing. Like, Trump certainly like lies and exaggerates in a lot of instances, but I also think there's a lot of instances where he tells the truth to his detriment, and I think this is one of them. Like, even he like can't admit that like there's no way that he won't make a stink about it. Even he's like, yeah, I'll probably make a stink about it.
Well, hey, then I respect the honesty.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose. True.
I
It
was-
does scare me though. I feel like that man is gonna,
Well,
even if eventually, because a lot of his GOP colleagues are trying to sway him a little bit on mail-in voting, just because like they think it'll ruin GOP enthusiasm.
I think he will. I think he'll go quietly. This guy likes to play golf. He's got more things to do than be president. I think president's a stressful ass job.
yeah.
I mean, no one wants to be president forever. I mean, well, some people do.
Putin.
I don't see Donald Trump as a guy that wants to be president forever.
True. I think he just wants to go down in the history book as a great president, and I think that's also part of why he's so like on edge, because he's been trying to be impeached since day one. It seemed pretty apparent that they want him to go down as the worst president since day one, and I think that's also why, if anything, why he'd bitch after he gets removed, because it's almost like he realizes at this point that the only way to really go down as like a good president is to play into the fact that the deck is stacked against him.
Mm-hmm.
True. Interesting though. I don't. Still gives me a little bit of a chill,
Yeah, well,
mainly because of how the Mitch McConnell support that he has. And like you said, it could be just a puppet master, and going either way, I guess. But
yeah.
he's got a lot of high-ranking officials in the Senate and in the House that, my opinion, wouldn't mind if he was still there.
Well, I guess my only thing is, there's still a lot of remnants of Obama's administration, like in the government, and who want Biden to win. And I guarantee a lot of them kind of keep it on the DL what they want. You don't think that power would like come into play in pushing Donald Trump out? Like, it has less to do with whether or not people want to keep him in, and more to do with how many people want him out and have the power to like make sure he goes out. Because I think there's a lot of generals that don't want him to stay in power too, especially because like Trump's right winged on a lot of things. But you know what? He has been way less like right winged about than I'd say the Democrats even. Interventionists in the Middle East. He still has like wars going on over there, but he's dialed it back a little bit, and especially in some areas. And like John Bolton wanted a freaking war with Iran, and Trump said like. Trump asked for the body count, John Bolton gave him a number, and Trump was like, too many bodies. And that was the end of that. And what's really funny is, that's like the entire motivation of John Bolton writing his dumbass book, was because John Bolton didn't get his war. And he even says he accuses Trump of all this crap in his book that he, if it's true, it's pretty shitty of John Bolton to wait till the book and not like say it during the impeachment. So it makes me skeptical that it didn't even happen. And also, the way John Bolton describes the whole thing of Trump saying that's too many bodies, you can tell that that really bothered John Bolton. And he literally said, I can't believe a president said this. I've never seen anything like that. And this guy's been working in the government for like the past like 3 administrations.
Yeah.
And like, the fact that by his own characterization, like George W. Bush, Obama, and people like that seem to have less of a problem with things like that than Trump, like, does really open my eyes up to the fact that a lot of pro-interventionist neocons and neolibs really do want Trump out of the White House. So, and I think those are a lot of the people who have sway over the military. So I don't think Trump would have the means to stay in office, because I don't think he wants a war.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the things that he would need to actually, like, actually stay in office. Like how much like
You
gun
need
power.
military control.
Yeah, right. You'd have to be Okay, Chancellor Palpatine. I am the Senate.
Yep.
Yeah, which is basically what Putin is. But Putin also has military background with friends established in the military and the secret police. I don't know much about President Xi, but I imagine he has friends in the Chinese CIA. Like he has to. Trump was like bad mouthing the CIA from like day one, and the FBI. So there's like,
Yeah, it's true.
Sometimes I love the style, bro. The Donald Trump.
I
style.
really do
It's,
too. I just wish he was a little bit more like if you could have the same style with like a better head on those shoulders, I would probably like love it. But it just makes me scary because it is like is he gonna shoot? Is he gonna shoot a target or is he gonna shoot a puppy? Like, what's he gonna shoot next? There's a gun going off. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like it's like if Brett Favre was the president, dude. It's like the way he played. Just
Yeah, you just didn't know
guns
what was
blazing.
gonna happen. Yeah, he's just.
that was my analogy.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that was a 6
That was
out of-
also a 6 out of
Yeah, those
No,
six.
that was pretty good. 'Cause
Shut
I
the hell
don't
up.
shut up. I don't know. I'm not a huge sports guy, but one statistic I do know about sports, I don't know if it's still true because like I learned this statistic like 6 years ago, probably longer than that. But like Brett Favre, most interceptions in the entire NFL of any quarterback.
Yeah.
But also, the didn't he have the most touchdown yards for a while?
Yeah,
Touchdown,
he did.
yeah, and passing yards.
Yeah, and he had both those records simultaneously.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I'd say that translates to, that's about as far as my sports knowledge goes. My brother used to be a huge fan of Brett Favre, so I knew a little bit of Brett Favre
Yeah.
trivia.
Yeah, people in Wisconsin love Brett Favre. Maybe less now after the whole Viking charade. But
Oh, I'd understand
definitely.
why.
What else you got on your mind? Should we talk?
I don't know.
Should we talk about just opening up schools for a little bit?
Yeah, that's
Because I
a
feel
little
like
later.
I want to get your
It's
take.
important too.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are your guys' schools looking?
Well, see, I'm still so confused on how we're doing.
I'm super confused too. They're not making it very clear.
Nope. So like we got an email a couple weeks ago that we were gonna do like a
Hybrid.
some hybrid form, which can mean a lot of things. Like 1 week on, 1 week off. Some classes will be online, some classes,
It also said that the classes would only be at half capacity.
and that would mean that you would have to do weeknight classes or even some weekend classes.
Yeah. Yep. Jeez.
What the hell?
And that makes me believe that my schedule that I have right now is probably going to be changed.
Yeah, I
But
looked.
that
I
hasn't
just
been
looked, and
announced.
one of my classes is online now, but only.
I already had one moved online when they sent that email like a month ago, but that was before the hybrid and the half class capacity email, and that message was scheduling more than
Yeah.
moving some online. So it's like
They
what are we
said
doing?
they're gonna know more about the what they're gonna do with the 50% capacity in August. So yeah, that gives you enough time to prepare, I guess. But like,
the
my
world's
opinion,
just
is it really worth it? Like, not even just
going to school?
or opening them up, like still having school. You're gonna be spending so much extra money. You're giving the students 0 discount.
It just irritates me because what am I going to do? Go fucking find another job?
Yeah.
Big rip.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to school, bro. Stop making this complicated.
But even like on the K through 12 side of it, like
Well, that's a really
just
rough.
our local district. My mom is friends with a lot of people in our local district, and they were saying like they can only have like 17 kids on the bus at one time.
That's not very many.
Some bus
Yeah.
runs would be starting at like 6 a.m.
You'd have to do two
Yeah,
separate for the same route. You'd have to double the bus.
even that. How are you going to cut class sizes? You probably don't have enough classrooms for that.
How are you gonna keep kids from touching each other, dude?
Mhm.
You know, like
They're kids.
kids, they just want to mess with each other.
In one Texas county, just this last weekend, 85 newborns under the age of a year got coronavirus in one day. Yeah,
Are they okay?
as of now, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I hope so.
That's a little scary.
Yeah, but even that, like, how are you protecting the teachers? How are you gonna?
from what I understand, the concern has more to do with the teachers, because the teachers, a large percent of, like, I'm pretty sure it's like 60% or higher are within, like, the age.
Yeah, the
group.
vulnerable age
Yeah,
group, yeah.
like above like the age of like 55 and shit like that. Like, yeah, the big thing is about protecting the teachers, not protecting, like, obviously you want to protect the students, but the students, let's face it, are just less susceptible to even being at risk. So the idea is, do you have the teachers call into the school, and do you just have the students at the school and have like barely any teachers except like the few that are young, like at the school?
I know in Arizona, because that's where my mom is going to teach, they give you the option. If you would, when you are comfortable teaching online, you can do that. You don't have to do it for the whole year or whole half year. But
Do they still need like an actual adult there in the school, like in the room for liability reasons? Like, that's my question. You have a classroom, the teacher's on a screen, there's no adult in the room.
well,
Like-
the students would be online too. They wouldn't be at the school.
But there is talk of like it happening like the way
like-
I'm talking about too, because
Like the teacher would be on like a Zoom call while all the
Yeah,
kids are in class.
because like I said, the teacher's the one that they're more concerned about protecting teachers.
Yeah. Well, even the kids too. They can be asymptomatic carriers of it.
Nothing works, dude, right now. Nothing is working.
It's it's gonna be crazy. There is no way, in my opinion. I'm taking a very pessimistic view of this
I
right
think-
now. That sports will be played, that schools will be open for the entire semester,
Yeah, pretty much just holding out for the vaccine right now.
and I think
Thinking-
We're getting close. We're getting close.
That's what I've been hearing.
there is I forget the name.
Dude, if the vaccine actually came out and worked, I guarantee you, like, before November, Trump would win.
Oh
Bold
yeah.
prediction.
Yeah.
If the vaccine gets out and starts working, it's going to be a Trump victory.
Yeah.
Trump's going to claim credit for it.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
going to work. His
Yeah.
approval rating's going to skyrocket.
Yeah. He would look like God, bro.
Yeah, but
I have your
can you
vaccine.
imagine? It comes out 1 week. Oh my god, dude! It would act. The nuttiest outcome is if it happened under Trump's presidency, but after he lost the election. Could you
Oh, yeah.
imagine that?
There's a better chance of that happening, actually.
Holy dude, that's like, that would lead to like civil war. Holy crap. That's like the only way I can actually imagine Trump like having the power to stay in the White House is if the vaccine came out, everything got better right before the transition of power, and Trump would be like, I just fixed everything and now you're handing
No,
away
okay,
my
okay,
power.
okay. One thing
People
about
would
that.
eat that up, dude. People
One
would
thing
eat
about that.
up.
The three major, or no, there's more than three. There's like a dozen that are on phase 2 and phase 3. They're not American companies. Like the Oxford one that I'm gonna talk about real quick is one that is furthest ahead by a long shot and could have emergency doses of the vaccine by October. And
Do you think it matters if they're from America for Trump to take credit for
I
it?
feel like
Absolutely
I feel
not.
like it would be a lot harder
It would be harder, but I mean,
and easier for the Democrats to rebuttal.
I don't think the base cares too much.
No, that's true.
Yeah,
But-
but the base aren't really the ones who need to be swayed at this point, to be
Yeah,
fair.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, but that Oxford AstraZeneca company actually has said that they might have enough for 2 billion doses come October for emergency use, and then if it does get approved, then they can, and they have said multiple times that it's not for profit, so a dose would be for a few bucks only. That is, if it works.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. October.
This worked, yeah, dude. I wish I could have a vaccine, then I got my anti-corona armor, and then we can go back to normal, and then like everything becomes peachy.
The person, I saw something funny. The person who had the research at Oxford used her 3 triplets, her 3 21-year-old triplets,
Really?
as her main test subjects to start off, which is risky.
Risky, but I'm gonna be real.
But-
I've been looking into a lot of like vaccine testing and how
Yeah.
sketchy drug development and vaccine testing is. That is very commendable. Like, first of all, you gotta be so confident that it
Mhm.
works in order to even try that. Second of all, I honestly think that's a mark of a good person to try it on yourself or your own before trying it on the rest of the world.
Yep, and she was very confident. She said it had an 80%. She was 80% confident that it would be effective. She said it had an 80%
Did
probability.
it work on the triplets?
Yes, they showed very little
Let's just start making this.
side effects.
Like, fuck, I'm all in.
But the only problem is the way that this vaccine is made is that it doesn't use the coronavirus per se. It uses a common cold virus and attaches the coronavirus spike to the common cold virus. So if that doesn't trigger enough of an immune response to combat a coronavirus, then you're kind of in trouble. Because
Yeah.
it would take a lot less to identify a cold than identify a protein spike. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're basically saying, like, if this vaccine doesn't work on somebody, it's hard to imagine that anything else would or something.
Well, no, there are many ways they're going about it. Just the way she's going about it is unique and could possibly not work. But she does have experience. She's worked with MERS before.
Okay, let's go all in on this shit.
Yeah,
I
she's
don't-
worked
I
with
don't
MERS
think
before, and when that like kind of died out, she kind of just saved her research because MERS and COVID are like 40% similar in terms of their genetic code.
Has Trump been promoting this at all?
No,
I
it's
wonder why not.
it's a UK thing, I think,
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't.
and I don't think they have any deals with the US yet. I don't know how it works.
I mean, you'd think he would just say whatever the best closest thing to a cure is and be like, we almost have a cure, whether or not he's doing it or not. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he still comes up with I think it's just gonna disappear one day. Quote, like he said that in a Chris Wallace interview too.
yeah, when Joe Biden becomes president, the narrative needs to flip. Got him.
Wait, what?
I mean, I was making a tongue-in-cheek joke.
Oh.
I was basically saying that the media will downplay Corona if Joe Biden becomes president, which
That'll be interesting, yeah.
obviously it's not going to go away if Joe Biden becomes president, but I do think we will see a shift in the coverage when he becomes president.
Yeah,
is it-
but it also depends on the situation he's in.
Yeah, I mean, not to say the media won't cover it at all,
Yeah.
but let's be real though. CNN and MSNBC are the fucking DNC's lapdog.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna do whatever they can to make him look good.
But if you're going to convince me that Fauci or some are the higher ups in the administration, because Joe Biden said if he were to win the election, he would bring Fauci to work alongside him.
I mean, isn't Fauci still working with Trump?
But I'm saying like he wouldn't lose his job if Trump administration were to lose.
You think it would be harder to get people to take the vaccine if it comes out
We talked about this.
after Joe Biden wins?
Yeah.
You have already.
No, we were just talking about the vaccine. Like, do you think it would? There's plenty of anti-vaxxers in the world, but when it comes to a virus like this, do you think it would have to be mandatory? Like, you got like those 12-year-old shots that you have to get going into middle school, and then those shots that you need to get going into college.
Mhm.
You think
Yeah.
it would be hard,
Yeah. I don't.
especially one that was made in record-breaking time, to
Yeah.
make it mandatory.
Dude, can you imagine? So no doubt. Like, I do think it's good that we kind of rushed through the vaccine, and I do think that even if the vaccine has complications, I think it would do more harm than good. So let's say this vaccine has more let's just call it misfires than the average vaccine. And when I mean misfires, I just mean people who have like bad side effects. I still think it would be worthwhile, but can you imagine the fire that would, like the fuel that would give to the anti-vax fire? Like,
Oh yeah.
if this vaccine has maybe like 5% more like cases that don't work out than the average vaccine, anti-vaxxers would just go nuts, and then we'd see more of them into the next generation.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think
Fuck
that
those people.
outcome's the best, but I just know that unfortunately our best outcome or our best option right now is going to inadvertently create more anti-vaccine sentiment, which is very unfortunate. But
I never thought about it like that. Yeah. I don't see any way that doesn't happen.
well, unfortunately, oftentimes some of the best moves for progress create groups of people that inhibit progress. And sometimes I do think you should plan things around trying to minimize those people, which is why I kind of was strongly against the riots, because I think that I do think that fixing policing in the way that it needs to be fixed will only be slowed down by engaging in behavior like this. But it's a little different in a time-sensitive thing like a virus. I'd rather cure the virus and then have to deal with more stupid people who would vote against our interests later than have this virus affect things for longer.
Yeah.
But it's just important to remember that the type of people that it creates, I don't think that's selling out or being disingenuous and allowing that to impact my decisions. I am a pragmatist, deep down. I think of how things work and cause and effect and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's scary to think about. Because, you're gonna have a...
Anti-vaxxers, woo!
Dude, get them out of here, man.
Honestly, yeah, don't give your kids vaccines or they might turn out like me.
Don't say that. You can... wow.
That's hilarious.
Jeez. Well...
So, bro, I can't not do that joke. It's the best joke ever.
As our fan base grows, it's gonna be the face of the anti-vaxxer movement. Not ask for it.
You know, one thing I forgot to bring up earlier, just to go full circle back to paying teachers more, what was said earlier.
Oh yeah.
I found out teachers in Canada make $80,000.
That's just one more reason.
And that's why they have a good school
Also,
system.
they don't have a federal education bureau.
Huh.
They don't have anything equivalent to the Department of Education. It's all done by province.
I don't know much about Canada, as far as.
Neither did I, but I've been learning a little bit more lately.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah,
I've been talking to somebody from Canada who has a law degree, so I've been learning a little bit more about Canadian law and how it relates to the United States.
$80,000. God.
I mean, that's probably a rough estimate. I'm sure it depends.
Oh
on a
yeah,
couple
on
other
the
things.
province.
But still.
Yeah, what is it here? 40, 50K?
Yeah.
Less, sometimes less than that.
Yeah, that's pretty decent.
Jeez.
Apparently, it's harder to become a teacher.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what are the requirements? Cause
Obviously, I couldn't give you a detailed answer, but I know it takes longer, and I know that.
As it should.
It's more competitive.
oh really? I find it very competitive in this country.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And why the heck are we going through Spanish teachers at New Richmond?
That is a good point. Yep. Cause contracts, bro. If they're bad,
Yeah.
they're not coming back. Especially if it's your first teaching job.
Yeah.
You're given a 1-year contract or sometimes a 2-year contract.
Especially if you're talking about your boyfriend in front of the class day after day.
Your $1 billion.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
okay, I got you.
Yep.
Yeah. It finally hit me. I'm like, what the? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good times.
Got flown down to Miami
Yeah.
just to meet the fam. No,
Just to meet the fam in Miami. Softly.
My family.
my fam. All right, we got anything else?
I'm trying to think. I don't know.
All right, then let's close her out.
All
Well,
right.
thanks for coming, everyone, to episode 20.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, appreciate you having me again once more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John.
Uh,
So, and I mean this with so much like flattering and genuinity. So, you know the Joe Rogan podcast, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what guest has been on Joe Rogan the most?
Uh,
It's Joey Diaz, a comedian that Joe is friends with. So the average Joe Rogan guest goes on maybe like 2 or 3 times. Elon Musk has been on twice. Yeah. So like, do you know how many times Joey Diaz has been on? Like 52 times.
holy shit.
I want you to be the Joey Diaz of this podcast. Can you do that for me, John?
Yeah,
Mine.
can you promise me that, John?
It'd be my pleasure. It would be my pleasure. I am
That's
the
awesome.
number one fan. I am the number one fan. So.
Yeah.
Do you know we have fans in Germany and Ireland?
I feel like that has to be fake.
Just a
It's
VPN.
not fake.
It's probably just a VPN or some shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I've been seeing so many ads for NordVPN. I'm thinking about getting it because you can like watch Netflix from other countries and like get shows that aren't on American Netflix. Because like UK Netflix is pretty epic. Like I've heard.
Dang.
There's a lot of like popular shows that are on like UK Netflix that aren't on American Netflix. Yeah, NordVPN. If you want to sponsor us, I would love to shill for you.
All right.
Any VPN, really.
Thanks for listening. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now YouTube. If you want to watch this show live, not live, recorded, join us, like, subscribe, and have a wonderful day.